Hi again then guys, and so we've got another special project replica style build for you today, and this time it's for a car which actually isn't on the game, a manufacturer which isn't on the game, which I made a parody of course of a few days ago, Porsche. But we do however have Roof on the game, which is as close as we can get to having actual licensed Porsches at the moment. And basically what I've done with this particular tune is I've taken the Roof RGT, which is one of the newer shaped roofs, and turned it into a replica of the Porsche 996 Series 911, which is the exact same shape as the RGT, it's the 911 which it's based on, and turned this car into a replica of the top of the line 996 of the production versions, which is the GT2. It's the most powerful production version, obviously not as fast as the GT1, but it'd be pretty difficult to replicate that car on the game. So, as far as the visuals, it's a relatively simple visual look to get on this car, but we'll give it a quick run through anyway. More importantly then we'll go over of course to the tuning garage for the mechanical setup, and then we'll take it out to the track to see what it can do. Now, visually, there isn't all that much that you can actually do to the RGT, but thankfully it does look fairly accurate to the GT2 anyway. It has a similar wing, similar shape, even a similar body kit, funnily enough. Now, for the rims, the actual 911 GT2 has 5 spokes, which are slightly of an almost turbine kind of shape to them. The spokes are kind of tilted backwards, which we can't really get on the game. Now the rims that I've gone for, I can't remember which size they were now, the standard size apparently, but I've gone for Enkei RP03 rims. Obviously you could go for another style. The RP03 Type RCs are kind of similar as well, but we can't really get exactly the same. I just think that those look the most accurate from what I've personally seen. Now there are no additional meters because obviously it doesn't have the detailed interior, and as far as the colours on the car, it is a production model of course, so technically you can go for whatever colour you want. Personally I wanted to give it a rich colour that would bring out the shape of the car and that also was appropriate for a GT2. Quite a few GT2s were sold in silver, so I've gone for the body, the colour of a metallic colour obviously, which is Thunder Silver, which is a fantastic looking silver. It almost has an ever so slight tinge of sand kind of colour to it, which looks perfect on this car, and that actually comes from the Toyota 2000 GT. And then for the rims, again of course you can go for whatever colour you want, but I wanted a silver which would give the rims a nice depth, so I went for Ultimate Metal Silver 4M, which is also a metallic colour of course, and comes from the Nissan GTR Black Edition. As far as the brakes, we don't have racing brakes because it's based on a production model, this replica, so I haven't upgraded the brakes. Thankfully though, the colour of the brakes looks good anyway and is accurate to real life, and obviously it has the stock wing, so you don't need to paint that either. So now we'll go over to the mechanical tuning garage for the replica setup. Now, as far as the mechanical setup on this particular model, it's not a PP specific tune, so it is just over 520 PP as you can see. You could detune it a little bit to make it PP specific, but I wanted it to just be a replica first and foremost. Now I've gone for sport soft tyres because it is more of a street based tune. Standard brakes as I just mentioned. For the suspension I've got the ride height on 70 front and rear, springs on 575 and 1050, the dampers and anti-roll all to 3 to give it a relatively street level feel to the suspension, camber on 0.5 front and rear, neutral toe. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff we've got the initial torque on 20 just to stop it from being a little bit overly slippery through corners, and it actually handles very well this car. Acceleration we've got as high as possible to stop it from being overly heavy, and the braking as low as possible to keep it under control under braking. As far as the power, the actual 996 GT2 has 462 horsepower, so we do have an oil change. We've gone for a stage 2 engine tune and intake tuning, and that actually brings you perfectly up to that power. As far as the weight, you want the body coloured bonnet and then a 115 kilo ballast, bringing us up to the actual weight of the real car, which is a surprisingly heavy 1440 kilos, and then we've put that ballast all the way to the front to slightly improve its weight balance. Now, as far as finally the gearbox, we've gone for the actual gears of the real 996 GT2. You need an auto setting of 230, then for the individual gears you want 3820, 2050, 1410, 1120, 920 and 750, with a final drive of 3.44. So that's it for the mechanical setup, and that is about as close as you can really get to actually having a 911 GT2 in terms of sheer spec on the game, and it's interesting to see where its PP would fall if it were on the game. So now let's finally take it out to the track to see what it can do. Now, overall, with replicas, you can never be too sure as to how they'll turn out, especially with a roof-based model. They're notorious for having tricky handling. But overall, I have to say I am extremely happy with this replica, and actually, it may even be one of my personal favourite replicas that I've done so far. It looks, sounds, performs, and handles like a 911 GT2 actually would if it were on the game. It feels great to drive. I love the look of the car, especially with this colour for me personally. And for those of you who do decide to use this replica, I hope you enjoy this about as close representation as we can get to actual Porsches on the game. And if you're new to the channel and would like to keep up with other replicas like this that have already been done and that are still to come, be sure to hit subscribe down below. And as always, thanks for watching.